What's shaking? Hey, I'm Rick Jordan, and today we're going all in. All right, I saw this quote, and I love quotes, but this sparked a thought process. And you know what? Maybe this will be short, maybe this will be long. I don't know, but this is how these shows always go, is I just start talking and exposing my heart and my mind, and then some of them end up being rapid fire, and some of them end up being, like an hour long. So we'll see where this one ends up today. But this was interesting to me because the quote said, hey, when you're not sure, like this is a process of deciding. When you're not sure, flip a coin. And I thought about this. I want you to visualize this right now, because the whole point of this is like flipping that coin and then it's like going down, and seeing like which one it lands on. Is it going to land on heads or tails? Because heads means this, tails means that. But when I started thinking about this and visualizing it, you know how people are like, if it's a football game or if it's like a choice in somebody's life, it's like, what's the phrase that somebody tells you if they're the ones that's flipping the coin, right? They're like, bloop, and they're like, call it. You call it while it's in the air. And this is the part that wasn't part of this quote, right? If you can't decide, flip a coin. It's just something so simple. But then I started deeply thinking about this, that if you flip the coin and while it's in the air, we just naturally know which side it wants to land on. For real. I mean, if you're looking at like a chocolate or vanilla ice cream, it's totally dumbing this down. Flip a coin, right? Flipping a coin, but then all of a sudden it's in the air and it's like, oh, I need to call it. Which one do I want? And maybe it's this job or that job. Maybe it's this girl or that girl. Maybe it's this guy or that guy. Maybe it's, have kids, not have kids. So whatever the deep choices in your life, the point is that deep down, you actually really, really know. You actually really know what you want all the time. All the time. At the core of your being, you know what you want. So when people say like, I don't know what I want, that's bullshit. Because deep down, they actually do know what they know. And that's like this tiny little voice sometimes that gets just shoved on and all this stuff piled on top of it to where you can't hear it anymore. And you're like, I don't know what I want. It's like, and it's trying to scream up at you, but you've got your hand over this thing's mouth inside of you that's actually trying to tell you. You are trying to tell you what you want, but you're not listening, or you're pawing a bunch of crap on it. All this baggage that you're carrying or whatever it is, or all of these what ifs that you're throwing on top of you. You're trying to rationalize everything. The problem is there has to be an end to rationalization. And it's sometimes you just got to fucking do it. You just got to listen to that voice that's inside of you, that gut of yours, that heart of yours, because it knows what it really wants. Even a damaged heart knows what it really wants. It's like the walls that are around it that you've built up over time are the things that cause you to be like, and you can't hear what you actually want anymore. But you still know what you want. When you take that flip of a coin, it's like, man, I really do want that. Think about that. Maybe try it if you're trying to make a decision. I don't know. I've never done this, but who knows? Try it. DM me. Let me know how this goes. If you're like, okay, heads, I'm going to go this way. Tails, I'm going to go that way. That coin gets in the air. It's going to be like, oh, I want to call it. I'd rather one way or the other. Now, there might be some questions that you can ask yourself to help figure this out, actually, what you really, really want. For real, these questions are actually pretty powerful. We're going to run through some today, okay? The first question is like, what would happen? Because most of this stuff is based on stories, right? Most of this stuff is based on stories, and that's how you cover up the mouth, cover up your heart for what you really want. So one of the biggest questions I want you to ask yourself is I want you to challenge your story with this question, okay? And you're thinking, oh, this is definitely going to happen. Absolutely, it's going to happen. I want you to ask yourself, what would happen? Well, what would it be like if that actually happened? Entertain your story. For real, because stories are just stories. Like they go to a certain point and then they stop. Right? There's always an ending point. I don't think that anytime anyone has had a self-limiting belief about themselves or thinking that a situation is going to go somewhere in a certain direction, it's like you could never possibly know that that's going to happen. How do you know? And it's like, I don't, or that person doesn't because they've never been in that situation before. It's that you know that it's impossible for that person to know, or truly it's impossible for you to know. But what I want you to do is I want you to play that story out in your head. This has to do with flipping the coin. So if you're thinking something is going to happen, I want you to ask yourself, what if that actually did happen? what would that look like? What would things around me be like? What would these people be like in my life? What would this person do if my story were actually true? What would I need to do if my story was actually true, if it actually got to that point? These are questions to challenge yourself. Because at some point in time, if your story is not actually true because of you don't have evidence of anything around you, and these are the next questions for real. What evidence do I have? What proof do I have that what I'm thinking is going to happen is actually what's going to happen? What evidence do I have that this is true? After you've already asked yourself, this is how you determine what you want. After you've already asked yourself, what would happen if this is true? Ask yourself, what proof do I have that this is true? What solid proof have I seen, have I heard, have I experienced that this is actually true? And then after that, ask yourself, what evidence do I have that it's not true? What proof do I have that this wouldn't happen? Those next two questions. What evidence do I have that this is not true? What proof do I have? What proof can I see that this is not true? And then the last question to ask yourself, and this is the powerful one. What would it look like if this wasn't true? If the story that I have going in my head right now that I'm telling myself, what would happen if this wasn't true? What would my life look like? These are sub-questions, of course. What would my life look like if this wasn't true? When you get to these points, this is when you start to be able to move the mouth, move your hand away from the mouth of who you actually are, and actually be able to sit in a still place. You might call this meditation. I would just call this self-reflection, to where you're asking yourself these questions. And it gets you to a point in a quiet place where you're challenging this and playing out all the possibilities. I want you to go back and listen to those questions again and write them down and then answer them. Because you'll be able to find out by going through those step by step and answering these questions, what's actually true, what's not true, and most importantly, what you're going to call that coin when you actually flip it in the air. Because there is something that you truly, truly want. You've just been piling a bunch of stories and self-limiting beliefs on top of it, to where you cannot hear yourself anymore, where you are muting yourself. You're covering up your own voice inside of you. Step through these questions that I gave you, and that's how you'll begin to hear yourself again. And you'll know exactly what you're going to call when that coin is flipped and it's in midair.